Hi everyone! Welcome to my blog! And I hope you're enjoying this tutorial video. Hi everyone! My name is Lovely Stasi, a Master's in Public Administration student. Today, I was tasked to deliver to you the Philippine budgeting process, the budget methods, practices, and the budget preparation and deliberation. So, why budgeting process is important? Since budgeting allows you to create a spending plan for your money, it ensures that you will always have enough money for the things you need and the things that are important to you. So, following a budget or spending plan will also keep you out of debt or help you work your way out of debt if you are currently in debt. So, this would be the concept of the Philippine budgeting process. So, it is a financial plan to pursue priority programs and projects of the government in line with its economic growth and human development trust. So, it is an instrument for good governance as government agencies are accountable for the delivery of measurable results through the respective budgets. So, the financial blueprint of the country's development plan. And they have also the purpose. Why is it important? Why is the budgeting process is important? So, to ensure that public resources are managed more efficiently and with the greatest degree of discipline. So, under the Aquino administration, it seeks to bring the budget closer to the people while channeling resources and on programs that accelerate economic growth, but more importantly, to redirect funds to programs that would be responsive to the needs of the people, especially those in regions visited by poverty. So, this budget was proposed last 2011. The Aquino, who had been president that time. So, the 2011 budget introduced reforms such as zero-based budgeting to ensure that public funds were spent only for public purposes. So, these reforms were essential for restoring a cynical public trust in government. So, in 2012 budget, it was addressed hiccups in the budget implementation. The mandate for the budget was clear to ensure the delivery of the results outlined in the Aquino Social Contract. So for 2013 budget, it was uh, empower the Filipino people to tighter prioritization of their needs, faster delivery of results, and more open budget process. So it emphasized that the government exists to serve the Filipino people. And the 2014 budget, all Filipinos most enjoy the prosperity that comes with sustainable economic development. So this is a thrust of the 2014 budget. So it was built on the successes made possible by an honest and trustworthy government. So it lays the foundation for inclusive development and sustains the momentum of the reform. So they had 2.268 trillion that time. And for now, according to late President Aquino, he stated that ang daang matuwid ay ang daang tungo sa kasaganahan. So, ibig sabihin, kung gusto nating makita matagumpay ang plano ito, kailangan tuloy-tuloy ang pagpanig natin sa daang matuwid. Oras nga po na lumihis tayo mula rito, ihadong maudlot ang pagsagad ninyo sa positibong pagbabagong ating nasimulan. So, it was said by Aquino on his speech during PEF's 86th Foundation anniversary. So, for the Philippine budgetary process by legal basis, according to Section 22, Article 7 of the 1987 Constitution, sets the tone for the budgetary process. The procedure in the preparation of the national budget is regulated by law. On or before October 20 of each year, each department secretary submits to the Department of Budget the estimated income and expenditures of the bureaus and offices under his department for the next fiscal year. So, upon receipt of all budget estimates of income and expenditures, the Department of Budget and Management prepares the national budget. So, prior to this, however, the budget secretary can investigate, revise, examine, assemble, coordinate, and reduce or increase the budget estimate of the different departments, bureaus, and offices of the government. So after preparing the budget secretary submit it to the president, who in turn submits it to the Congress with 30 days before the opening of the regular session. So, the 1987 Constitution specifically provides that the President shall submit to the Congress within 30 days from the opening of your regular base session. So, as the basis of the General Appropriations Bill, budget of expenditures and sources of financing, including receipt from existing and proposed revenue measures under Secretary 22, Article 6. So Congress uses the budget submitted by the President as the basis for the annual appropriation. So according to 1987 Philippines Constitution, Congress may not increase the appropriation recommended by the President for the operation of the government as specified in the budget by the Section 25(1), Article 6. So, how is the government budget crafted and approved? So, they have a budget cycle. So, there are 4 phases in managing the national budget. So, first is the budget preparation, the budget legislation, the budget execution, the budget accountability. So, during the preparation phase, the executive prepares the proposed national budget. So, this is followed by the legislation phase, where the Congress authorizes the General Appropriations Act. So, in the execution phase, agencies utilize their approved budgets, and during the accountability phase, the executive monitors and evaluates the use of the budget. So they have the cycle, so the national budget cycle. So when we say in preparation, they get to the legislation, execution, and accountability. So it is a cycle. And the budget preparation. So from the DBCC sets parameters to budget call to stakeholders consultation. So down to agency budget proposals, technical budget hearings, executive review, consultation, validation, and confirmation. So preparation to President Cabinet and the President's budget. So in order to approve the budget, so they need to be prepared on this process. So for budget preparation, budget call. At the beginning of the budget preparation year, the Department of Budget and Management called DBM issues the national budget call to all agencies, including state universities and colleges, and a separate corporate budget call to all GOCCs and GFIs. So, the budget call contains budget parameters, including macroeconomic and fiscal targets, and agency budget ceilings. So, as set beforehand by the Development Budget Coordination Committee, DBCC, and policy guidelines and procedures in the preparation and submission of the agency budget proposal. So for budget preparation for stakeholder consultation, a new feature in budget preparations which seeks to increase citizen participation in the budget process. Departments and agencies are tasked to partner with civil society organizations, which is CSOs, and citizen stakeholders as they prepare their agency budget proposals. So this new process, which was piloted in the preparation of the 2012 national budget, is now being expanded towards institutionalization. So how is the government budget crafted and approved? So they had a budget cycle. So there are four phases in managing the national budget. So first, the budget preparation, the budget legislation, the budget execution, the budget accountability. So during the preparation phase, the executive prepares a proposed national budget. So this is followed by the legislation phase, where the Congress authorizes the General Appropriations Act. So in the execution phase, agencies utilize their approved budgets, and during the accountability phase, the executive monitors and evaluates the use of the budget. So, ito po yung national budget cycle. So, first is the preparation. So, preparation, budget formulation. So the executive formulates the draft budget. So, for preparation, down to legislation. So, it is a budget approval. So, the legislator revise and and amends the budget. So and then enacts in it into laws. And then enact it into laws. So third is the budget execution. So for the execution, the executive collects revenue and spends money as per the allocation made in the budget law. So for the accountability, it is an budget oversight. So the budget accounts are audited and audit findings are reviewed by the legislator, which requires action to be taken by the executive to correct audit findings. And so it is the budget preparation. So down to the from the DBCC sets parameters to budget call to stakeholders consultation, so agency budget proposals, and agency budget proposals to technical budget hearings, and technical budget hearings to executive review, and from executive review down to consultation, validation, and confirmation, and going to preparation to President and Cabinet and the President's budgets. So the President's budgets is the final. So the budget preparation and the budget call. So at the beginning of the budget preparation year, the Department of Budget and Management called DBM issues the national budget call to all agencies, including state universities and colleges, and a separate corporate budget call to all GOCCs and GFIs. So the budget call contains budget parameters, including macroeconomic and fiscal targets, and agency budget ceilings, so as set beforehand by the Development Budget Coordination Committee, or DBCC, and policy guidelines and procedures in the preparation and submission of the agency budget proposals. So for budget preparation stakeholder consultations, a new feature in budget preparations which seeks to increase citizen participation in the budget process. So departments and agencies are tasked to partner with civil society organizations, or CSOs, and citizen stakeholders as they prepare their agency budget proposals. So this new process, which was piloted in the preparation of the 2012 national budget, is now being expanded towards institutionalization. So, for budget preparation, departments and GOCCs mandated to conduct consultations. So, from original set piloted in 2012 to new set starting 2013. So, late 2013. So, from Department of Health from 2012. So for the new set, it was Department of Tourism. On Department of Education, Department of Regional set was in piloted 2012. Department of Education, Department of Social Welfare and Development, Department of Public Works and Highways, Department of Agriculture, Department of Agrarian Reform, and National Food Authority, National Housing Authority, National Home Mortgage and Finance Corporation. So this regional set was piloted late 2012. So for the new set, late 2013, since we are now 2020, and so this was starting 2013, Department of Tourism, Department of Transportation and Communication, Department of Interior and Local Government, Department of Justice, Department of Labor and Employment, Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Light Rail Transit Authority, National Electrification Administration, and National Irrigation. So it was preparation last 2013. So not all departments and agencies are highly encouraged to undertake the process. So for budget preparation, agency budget proposals, for the first time in history, the national budget for 2013 will be prepared using a breakthrough bottom-up approach. So opposed to the conventional way of allocating resources from top to bottom, grassroots communities will be engaged in designing the national budget. The Aquino government, through the Cabinet Cluster on Human Development and Poverty Reduction, has identified 300 to 400 of the poorest municipalities and will engage this in crafting community-level poverty reduction and empowerment plans. So, this initial solved bottom-up budgeting will focus on rural development programs and the conditional cash transfer programs and will thus involve DA, DAR, DNR, DSWD, DepEd, and DOH. So, these agencies will then include the community plans in their proposed budget. So for budget preparation, technical budget hearings, these are conducted after departments and agencies submit their agency budget proposals to the DBM. Here agencies defend their proposed budgets before a technical panel of DBM. So based on performance, indicators and output targets and absorptive capacity, DBM bureaus then review the agency proposals and prepare recommendations. So after the technical budget hearings, so it continued to executive review. So the recommendations are presented before an executive review board, which is composed of the DBM secretary and senior officials. So for deliberations, here entail a careful prioritization of program and corresponding support. Vis-a-vis the priority agenda of the national government, so implementation issues are also discussed and resolved. So next is the consolidation, validation, and confirmation. So the DBM then consolidates the recommended agency budgets and recommendations into a national expenditures program and a budget of expenditures and sources of financing, which is BESF. So as part of the consolidating process, the deliberation by the DBCC will determine the agency and sectoral allocation of the approved total expenditures ceiling. In line with the macroeconomic and fiscal program, heads of major departments are invited to this meeting. So for presentation to the President, the proposed budget is presented by DBM together with the DBCC to the President and Cabinet for further refinements or reprioritization. So after the President and Cabinet approve the proposed national expenditure, the plan, the DBM prepares and finalizes the budget documents to be submitted to Congress. So the last part is the President's budget. So it is the budget preparation phase, ends with the submission of the proposed national budget, the President's budget, to Congress. So the President's budget consists of the following documents, which help legislators analyze the contents of the proposed budget. So, President Budget Message, PBM, this is where the President explains the policy framework and priorities in the budget, and budget of expenditure and sources of financing, which is BESF, mandated by the Constitution. This contains the macroeconomic assumptions, public sector context, including overview of LGU and GOCC, financial positions, breakdown of the expenditure and funding sources for the fiscal year and the two previous years. So the National Expenditures Program, or NEP, this contains the details of spending for each department and agency by the program, activity, or project, and is submitted in the form of proposed General Appropriations Act. So for details of selector, program, and project, this contains a more detailed disaggregation of K program, project, and activities in the NEP, especially those in line with the National Government Development Plan. So staffing, this contains a summary of the staffing complement of each department and agency, including number of positions and amounts allocated for the same. So, President Budget's Message, PBM excerpt. Our esteemed ladies and gentlemen of the 16th Congress, as authorized is proposed budget for fiscal years 2014. So, it was said by Benigno Aquino III, President of the Philippines, late President of the Philippines. So, he said that our esteemed ladies and gentlemen of the 16th Congress, as authorized this proposed budget for fiscal year 2014, I invite you to commit with us in our efforts to realize this legacy. So, it was a letter for the cabinet that halina't sama-sama nating tahaking ang tuwid sa landas tungo sa kasaganahan ng lahat. It is in this light that I ask you, the men and women of Congress, to examine and eventually approve this proposed budget for fiscal year 2014. So, budget legislation. So, for alternatively called the budget authorization phase, this starts upon the House Speakers receive of the President budget and ends with the President enactment of the General Appropriations Act. So, from the submission of budget to Congress to deliberations, it was appropriations of community hearings, plenary deliberation, approve of GAP, Senate deliberations, finance community hearing, plenary deliberations, approval of Senate cap, and bicameral conference committee to ratification of harmonized version of GAB, to veto an enactment of GAA and enactment partial overrule. So for budget legislation House deliberation, so the House of Representatives in plenary assigns the President budget to the House, so Appropriations Committee. So the committee and its subcommittees then scheduled and conduct hearings on the budget of the department and agencies and scrutinize their respective program and projects. So it then crafts the General Appropriation Bill GAP. So GAB. So in plenary session, the GAB is sponsored, presented, and defended by the Appropriations Committee and Subcommittee Chairman. So as in all other laws, GAB is approved on second and third reading before transmission to the Senate. So note, in this first reading, the President's budget is assigned to the Appropriations Committee. So from the committee, GAB. So Budget legislation, Senate deliberation. So, as in the House process, the Senate conducts its own committee hearings and plenary deliberations on the GOB. Budget deliberations in the Senate formally start after the House of Representatives transmit the GOBs. For expediency, however, the Senate Financing Committee and Subcommittee usually start hearings in the GOB even as House deliberations are ongoing. So the committee submits its proposed and amendments to the GOBs. So for budget legislation, Senate deliberation. As in the House process, the Senate conducts its own committee hearings and plenary deliberations on the GOB. So budget deliberations in the Senate formally start after the House of Representatives transmits the GOB. For expediency, however, the Senate Financing Committee and Subcommittee usually start hearings on the GOB even as the House deliberations are ongoing. The committee submits its proposed amendments to the GAB to plenary only after it has been formally transmitted by the House. So for the budget legislation bicameral deliberation, so if it once both House of Congress have finished their deliberations, they will each constitute a panel to the bicameral conference committee. So this committee will then discuss and harmonize the conflicting provisions of the House and Senate versions of the GAB. So a harmonized version of the GAB is thus produced. In budget legislation ratification of GAB, so the harmonized or BICAM version is then submitted to the both houses, which will then both to ratify the final GAB for submission to the President. Once submitted to the President for his approval, the GAB is considered enrolled. So, for budget legislation, veto and enactment of GAA, which means GAA, the President and DBM then review the GOB and prepare a veto message. So, for budget items subjected to direct veto or conditional implementation or unidentified and where general observation are made. So, under the Constitution, the GOB is only legislative measure where the President can impose a line veto. So, in all other cases, a law is either approved or vetoed in full. So, let's proceed to budget legislation reenactment. Um, so, when the GAA is not enacted before the fiscal year starts, the previous year's GAA is automatically reenacted. So, this means that agency budget for program, activities, and projected remain the same. So, for funding the four programs for projects that have already been terminated is realigned for other expenditures because reenactments are tedious and prone to abuse. So, the Aquino administration, with the support of the Congress, has committee to ensure the timely enactment of a new GAA every year. So this is where the people's money is actually spent as soon as the GAA is enacted. The government can implement its priority and projects. So the budget execution guide, release guidelines and programs. So the budget execution phase begins with DBM's issuance of guidelines on the release and utilization of funds. So we have now here the budget execution documents or bids. So agencies are required to submit their bids at start of budget execution. These documents outline agency plans and performance targets. These bids include the physical and financial plan, monthly cash program, estimate of monthly income, and list of obligations that are not yet due and demandable. So, allotment and cash release programming to ensure that releases fit the approved fiscal program. The DBM prepares an allotment release program or ERF to set a limit for an allotment issued to an agency and the aggregate. So the ERF of each agency is correspond to the total amount of the agency's specific budget under the GAA, so as well as automatic appropriations. A cash release program or CRP is also formulated alongside it to set a guide for disbursement levels for the year and for every month. So, allotments which authorize an agency to enter into obligation are either released by DBM to all agencies comprehensively through the agency budget matrix ABM and individually via special allotment release orders or SAROs. So, for budget execution, allotment release, agency budget matrix AB or ABM, this document disaggregates all program appropriations for each agency into two main expenditures categories, the not needed clearance and needing clearance. So the DBM is comprehensive allotment release document for appropriations which do not need clearance. So or those which have already been itemized and fleshed out in the GAA. So allotment release orders arrows items identified as needing clearance. So are those which require the approval of the DBM or the President, as the case may be, for instance, lump sums, funds and confidential intelligence funds. So for such items, an agency needs to submit a special budget request to the DBM with supporting documents. Once approved, a SARO is issued. So in implementing programs, activities, and projects, agencies incur liabilities on behalf of the government. Obligations are liabilities legally incurred, which the government will pay for. So there are various ways that an agency obligates. So for example, when it hires staff, an obligation to pay salaries, so receive billings for the use of the utilities, or enters into a contract with an entity for the supply of goods or services. So for the GAA as allotment release, so the Aquino administration plans to design the Annual General Appropriations Act as a comprehensive allotment release document itself. So this is being pursued in order to significantly speed up the process of releasing the budget and implementing the programs and projects that it funds. So last 2013 national budget is designed in such way. So this entails the disaggregation of all budget items into full details as well as the elimination of all lump sum funds, so save for new exceptions such as the calamity fund. In other words, this reform significantly reduces the need for SAROs. So let's proceed to cash allocation. So to authorize an agency to pay the obligations, it ensures DBM issues a disbursement authority. So most of the time, it takes the form of the notice of cash allocations or NCA, and in special cases of the non-cash availment authority or NCAA and cash disbursement ceiling CDC. So cash allocation, notice of cash allocation or NCE. This is a cash authority issued periodically by the DBM to the operating units of agencies to cover their cash requirements. The NCE specifies the maximum amount of cash that can be withdrawn from a government or servicing bank for the period indicated. So the release of NCAs by DBM is based on an agency submission of its monthly cash program and other required documents. So cash allocation. Notice of cash allocation NCA. So this is a cash authority issued periodically by DBM to the operating units of agencies to cover their cash requirements. So the NCA specify the maximum amount of cash that can be withdrawn from a government servicing bank for the period indicated. So, cash allocation release of any NCEAs by DBM is based on an agency's submission of its monthly cash program and other required documents. So, other disbursement authorities, in contrast to NCAs, the non-cash availment authority are issued to authorize non-cash disbursement. So, cash disbursement selling or CDC are meanwhile issued to department with overseas operation. So, allowing them to use income collected by their foreign post for their operating requirements. So, so for the disbursement, so proceed to disbursement from the budget allocation to disbursement. So this is the final step of the budget execution phase. So where government monies are actually spent, the modified disbursement scheme so is mostly used where disbursement of national government agencies chargeable against the treasury are made through government servicing banks such as the Land Bank of the Philippines. So landmark because it is a public bank. So the budget process, of course, does not end when government agencies spend public funds. So each and every peso must be counted for to ensure that is used properly, contributing to the achievement of socio-economic goals. So, so this budget accountability. So this phase happens alongside the budget execution phase. So through budget accountability, the DBM monitors the efficiency of fund utilization, assesses agency performance, and provides a vital basis for reforms and new policies. So budget accountability performs the target outcome. So agencies are held accountable not only for this use public funds ethically, but also on how this attain performance targets and outcomes using available resources. These performance measures are set alongside the preparation of the national budget, and these are indicated in the OPIF Book of Outputs. So, prior to the execution of the enacted national budget, these performance targets are firmed up during the preparation of bids. So for checking. So, so for budget accountability reports or BARs, so submitted by agencies on a monthly and quarterly basis. So BARs are required reports that show how agencies use their funds and identify their corresponding physical accomplishments. So these include quarterly physical and financial reports of operations, so quarterly income reports and a monthly statement of allotments and obligation and balances. And lastly is monthly report of disbursement. So no report, no release. So that was the policy. So starting 2012, so last 2012, the DBM will be withholding certain fund releases to agencies if these fail to submit their budget accountability report. So in particular, this will be funds from the Miscellaneous Personal Benefits Fund or MPBF for compensation adjustment under the Salary Standardization Law. So provisions for unfiled positions and employee clothing allowances. So these funds to be withheld are only limited to agencies, so MPBF allotments, so that only the agencies are penalized and that the implementation of critical programs and projects will not be disrupted. So errant and compliant agencies will also be posted online for public scrutiny. So, so from so so for from no report, no release. So budget account review to agency performance. So the DBM, so, so the DBM regularly reviews. So the budget accountability review of agency performance. So the DBM regularly reviews the financial physical performance of agencies. So actual utilization of funds and physical accomplishment as indicated in the agency's board are evaluated against their targets as identified via OPIF and in the agency's bid. So, agency's performance reviews (APRs) are conducted quarterly or every semester as the case may be. So, an annual budget performance assessment review is conducted to determine each agency's accomplishment and performance by the year end. So, the DBM regularly report results to the president. So, next is the budget accountability or audit. So auditing is not within the DBM's jurisdiction. So, and is instead lodged under the Commission in Audit or COA. Nonetheless, auditing is critical to ensure agency accountability in the use of public funds. The DBM uses COA's audit report in confirming agency performance, determining budgetary levels for agency, and addressing issues in fund usage. So we have here the budget last 2014, so which they had 2.268 billion, a trillion, sorry. So from the paragraph, the social services got 37%, and the DEBT burden, which is 26%, and economic services had 16%, and defense 17%, and the general public services had 4%. So for in budget expense class, so for capital outlay, they had 100,732.4 billion, and for sa COA, they had 510.7 billion. So these are the budgets from 2014. So for the expense class, the MOOA had 375.3 billion here, the blue one, and the PS had 689.4 billion, the red one. So the LGUs got 273.2 billion, here the yellow one, and the tax expenditure fund got 26.9 billion, here the blue, and the interest payments got 352.7 billion, here the net lending, which got 25 billion. So the 2014 budget by department top 10. So these are the top 10 for the budget last 2014. So the DepEd got 339.9 billion. The DPWH 213.5 billion. The DILG 135.4 billion, and DND 123.1 billion. The DOH got 187.1 billion. The DA got 80.7 billion. DSWD 79.0 billion. DOTC 48.7 billion, and DNR 23.9 billion, and lastly the DAR 20.4 billion. So budget by region. So for the region 1, they got 55.7 billion. This proposal, this would be the proposal last 2014. So the region 2 48.1 billion, the CAR 32.2 billion, the region 3 got 94.9 billion, the region 4A got 102.9 billion, 4B 43 billion, and the NCR got 275.9 billion. So as follows. So as you can see, the NCR got the biggest budget by region. So the 2014 budget is a budget for inclusive development. So it recognizes that the gains of economic growth should be shared by all Filipinos. So its goal is to continue acceleration economic expansion while at the same time alleviating chronic poverty. So it was said by DBM Secretary Florencio B. Abad. So the excerpt on Pinoy Sona 2014 on budget. So he mentioned the budget last the late president of the Philippines, Noynoy Aquino. So the Philippines Development Plan. So this would be the Philippine Development Plan. So from 2011 to 2016. So the phrase is that in pursuit of inclusive growth and the macroeconomic policy, the competitive industry and services sector, and the competitive sustainable agriculture and fisheries sector, the accelerating infrastructure development, and towards a resilient and inclusive financial sector, good governance and the rule of law, and social development, peace and security. So that would be all. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. God bless. Bye-bye.